Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Polls consistently show that a majority of the American people disapprove of the president's handling of the economy.
Eviction filing rates are soaring, 50% higher than they were before the pandemic.
Over half of Americans earning a six-figure salary report that they're actually living paycheck to paycheck.
Tens and tens of millions of people are struggling to put food on the table.
The number of homeless people on the streets and in shelters across the U.S. increased significantly this year.
Biden trying to rev up his economic vision for America, but a lot of people aren't buying it because they can't literally buy anything.
It'll just be the rich people enjoying life. Is that what you want? Because that's where we're headed.
Can't tell you how many people I know, young and older, especially that are living in their cars. And living in their car, idiots.
Yeah, idiots. That's a 14-year-old calling out Joe Biden. Idiots. You want people living in your cars? This is why we are having State Representative David Tyson Smith on the show this morning, 7:35. He is a local Democrat state rep. Nice guy. We disagree on very little politically. I think we could agree on agriculture issues. I think we could agree on child care issues as it relates to workforce development.
Veterans issues.
Veterans issues. And that's about it. He's coming in this morning, 7:35, and I'll tell you up front, it's not going to be a debate. It's not going to be an argument. It's not about trying to prove who is right, because we already know who is right, Hannah.
If you have to tell people that you're right,
then chances are you ain't right.
I'm just nervous. Are you feeling good this morning? You're not cranky?
I am. As a matter of fact, Houseworth was, and this is something we had talked about within the show for a while, and I had mentioned to Mr. Tyson Smith several times, and Houseworth was there the day I went to Mr. Tyson and said, hey, you ready to do this?
Yeah, it was at the governor's bill signing ceremony, I-70 expansion project, just a couple of weeks ago, and it was out at MACC's parking lot. I was actually trying to do interviews, but I was trying to get him, but I overheard him. Basically, I heard you basically say, the way I remember it is you didn't want to debate, you just want to have a discussion, an open discussion, and he seemed receptive.
Because I just want to know, like, I'm curious, like a little kid looking at butterflies asking, Mom, why did the caterpillar... I'm just curious, and I don't know if it's morbid curiosity. So, Marsh, can we do this 7:30? And I think it'll be a fruitful discussion. Like, seriously, Dave, why do you think, like we just heard in this open, why do Democrats continue to go on TV and say the economy is good? Why do they do that, David? And I don't want to...
Yeah, we had a good discussion with him last time, like we mentioned the other day. He joined us live from the governor's prayer breakfast, and we had a nice discussion on issues coming up, especially at the State House that he was going to be involved in.
Well, and I think the time before that I saw him in person, he was at a Show Me Institute event with him and Senator Rowden. And I actually think, and that was, Show Me Institute, you think more conservatives in the crowd, but I think Senator Rowden might have caught more hate at that event than actually David Tyson Smith. It was right after the 2 legislative sessions ago, and folks were really frustrated about the legislature not getting things moving. I think at that time, Tyson Smith was so new that they kind of gave him a pass. I don't know that he'd get the same pass now, but...
That's almost what it's like in some political circles for State Senator Caleb Rowden, who's very likely to run for a higher statewide elected office. That's what it's like for him in political circles sometimes. You go and show up at an event with a Democrat, and you get more hate at a conservative event than the Democrat. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Houseworth is here.
We should also point out, good morning, that David Tyson Smith's bill that creates a Women's Veterans Day Remembrance Day for June 12th has passed, and he praised the governor, Republican governor, and Representative Dave Griffith for signing that.
There's Mr. John Marsh.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. Raven Harrison also, she's going to be here at 7:10. David Tyson Smith in studio, full half-hour sit-down conversation. Why do Democrats and progressives think the way they think? Also, some numbers that show Trump is beatable in early voting states. New political song keeps political music locking down the top spots on iTunes. And Missouri Dad lets Joe have it. And somebody finally said, I've had enough of these idiot progressive protesters out in the middle of the highway. I don't know if anybody saw this story, and I'm waiting. I don't know that anybody's been charged yet. But you know the big hippie festival they do in Nevada every year? I think they call it Burning Man. Bunch of people with braids in their hair. They reek of patchouli. They go and smoke weed and all this stuff, and then they burn stuff at the end of the event. You had protesters out there protesting, climate and this and all that, backed up traffic for miles, almost 200 vehicles backed up. And then all of a sudden, somebody from the local tribal police force, they do what every single person, I would bet. Haven't you wanted to do this? We see the stories on the news and these idiots get in the middle of the highway. Listen, you want to go and protest, that's fine. Do whatever you want. But when you start to impede and affect other people, regardless of what you're doing professionally or personally, when your actions start to impede on other people, that's a challenge. This dude from this Indian police department, this tribal police department, plows his truck through their stuff, man, turns around. I don't know if you've seen the video. It's spectacular, and forgive me if this sounds crass. He turns around, almost sounds like he revs up that engine, comes back, hits their stuff again. Nobody was hurt, gets out of the truck, pulls a gun. As I can tell this morning, no charges against him. But I love that. Like, finally, somebody did it. Somebody did it, finally. If I saw them, I'd high-five them and then donate $5 to their legal fine. I'm sure charges are going to be coming for those folks.
That is interesting. And we've seen protests in Missouri and right here in Columbia over the years that have shut highways down. That sounds like a major highway. I don't remember anything like that here. But I do remember certainly some St. Louis interstates have closed over the years, a couple times a year.
And somebody finally did something, and it's got me smiling this morning, and apologies if that offends you. 874-9390. Mark Schmitz, he is the father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. He was killed by Joe Biden 2 years ago on that sloppy pullout from Afghanistan. So if you were like leaving Fulton, you hop onto I-70 about an hour east, and you would land in Fulton, Missouri. Mark Schmitz, that's where he lives. Was in D.C. yesterday with other Gold Star families. Gold Star families is in effect, I guess, an honor that military families don't want. You're a Gold Star family if you lost a loved one in service. He goes and testifies in front of the House Armed Services Committee. Ann Wagner, St. Louis area. She's a congresswoman. She sits on that committee. And some of the things he said yesterday, he went back to the story about, remember, whenever his son's body came back, Joe Biden's like looking at his watch. He's added some language to that. Basically, he just let Joe Biden have it. How often have we had to have the bleep button in effect in hearings on D.C., John? It's not too often.
Every once in a blue moon.
And yesterday we had a blue moon.
Well, I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch over and over again. All I wanted to do was shout out, it's 2:30. But out of respect to the other grieving families, I bit my tongue once again. Well, as you could probably tell by now, I'm done biting my tongue. You, sir, stole their lives, their futures, their dreams, and have ripped apart 13 families. You cannot even man up and admit that.
Man, cannot imagine. This guy lost a son. I don't know the pain of losing a child. My father knows the pain of losing a child, but I can't imagine how this guy lost his young man fighting for his country in his own country under the leadership of Joe Biden. Did very little to protect him. And that's important because we're still seeing the consequences of that pullout in Afghanistan. We've played this over and over again. NATO's General Todd Walters was asked about why Ukraine was invaded by Russia.
I think he felt like he had popular support of the citizens of Russia. I also felt like he was attempting to take advantage of fissures that could have appeared in NATO as a result of the post-Afghanistan environment.
Post-Afghanistan environment created by Joe Biden. That's why Putin, and we saw this. What were Stephanie and I huge on prior to the 2020 election? We said the biggest thing that's going to happen that will affect every single one of us is Joe Biden representing our country
on the world stage, and it changed drastically.
It did, and that hurts all of us. I can't imagine the pain this guy goes through, but kudos on him for going and testifying along with other parents of the 13 folks that were lost in that sloppy pull. And I wonder about the folks, military folks like veterans, who we do a lot of work with here on the radio station. Welcome Home, getting ready to do a big picnic. They provide homeless services for veterans, but like what veterans? I wonder how that strikes a veteran, knowing what Joe did, leading to the death of those kids. Man, Stephanie Bell yesterday on Randy. I don't know if you ever heard the Randy Tobler show. If not, you should be checking it out 4 to 6 weekdays here on the radio station. Stephanie Bell was on there. You guys talked about a variety of topics.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about Hunter Biden and the debate and the Donald Trump indictments, obviously.
Donald Trump, by the way, he kind of, through artificial intelligence, has a song top 5 in the iTunes for downloads. We're going to hear that here in just a minute. It's pretty good. Here was my favorite part. Listen, Stephanie was on the Tobler show yesterday, a little bit after 4 o'clock, and here was my favorite part of you guys talking politics and court cases and court documents, pretty in depth. This was my favorite part.
I sit every morning after trying to contain Branden Rathert and his racing mind that's everywhere.
I really am.
That's
just
a good
trying
thing.
To keep up.
Yeah, his mind is a busy mind.
Mm-hmm.
John, she don't sound real convincing there.
I don't know. That was the diagnosis from the doctor.
We need some context there because you conveniently clipped some of the parts out where I said and I gave you a compliment, which you clipped off of the end of there.
I didn't hear that part.
Uh-huh.
John, did you let me play this again, John?
I really am.
That's
just
a good
trying
thing.
To keep up.
Yeah, his mind is a busy mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear where Stephanie says she's complimenting me, John.
I did. I said most men are criticized for not being able to multitask. You've got you got your little whiteboard with your eraser.
And if you're watch on our YouTube channel, by the way, we're real easy to find.
Yeah, Wake Up in Missouri.
So I have a whiteboard to keep track of stuff.
You got your special pin. You got you got lots of pieces of paper.
He's
you got
a little bit of a diva.
Two computer screens and a TV screen so you can see your face. You got a phone screen. You got buttons over here.
His tinfoil hat.
Your hat. You got a megaphone.
Water bottle.
He's got a new water bottle.
Yep, new water bottle. He is kind of a diva.
Oh.
I've got all the toys.
The tinfoil hat went flying.
We left your bowl of green M&Ms out in the green room.
I have all the toys necessary to conduct a successful radio show with producer Hannah, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, and Stephanie Bell.
Watch out, the porn bots are going to come back.
7:10 this morning. Raven Harrison's going to be joining us on the show. Her take on the current political climate. I don't think we got her take on the debate either. State Representative David Tyson Smith, the Democrat in studio. Why do Democrats think the way they do? He's here at 7:30 this morning.
Thank you for that.
In Missouri. All right, coming up 5 minutes from now, Daily DC Rundown.
Well, it was a hot topic at last week's debate, but we're finding out more on funding to Ukraine.
That's coming up 5 minutes from now.
support its air defenses as Russia continues to launch brutal strikes against the people of Ukraine.
White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre talking about another aid package to Ukraine. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
The conflict is now in its 18th month. We are being told that a lot of the resources previously provided have been used up, so we are sending an additional $250 million in resources. That includes mine clearing equipment, artillery and rocket rounds, ambulances, and medical gear. And we were told that the budget was used up for this year, and then they said, whoopsie, the Pentagon overvalued some equipment that it had already sent, which freed up $6.2 billion in funding.
What happened?
You know,
just like that.
I bet a whole bunch of people are wishing that their company overvalued something, and guess what? We have additional $6.2 billion to dole out this year in salaries.
Yeah, how about as an employee of a company? My company overvalues me because I am marginally, what's the word? I'm acceptable at this job. I'm adequate.
Who was in charge of valuing? Because $6.2 billion is not very close.
And we can do almost reverse engineering on this. So this is another expense to taxpayers, and a lot of this is stockpile stuff. Still, ultimately, there has been an expense to you because of what's happening in Ukraine. Why did Putin invade Ukraine? NATO said because of Joe Biden's sloppy Afghanistan pullout. Why did Joe Biden have a sloppy Afghanistan pullout and kill those kids? Because people voted to make Joe Biden president. We circle back to the present day.
Still, Joe Biden yesterday is kind of claiming victory, saying under the IRA, which is talking about inflation, that he's going to save you money on your prescription drugs. But in reality, they're only negotiating with about 10 different drugs to start out with. I didn't know this either. Any lower drug prices won't even take effect for 3 years, so no immediate relief. And again, yeah, you'll save maybe a couple bucks on your prescription, but the Heritage Foundation last year said that we've lost $7,000 in spending power since January 2021. So, he's saying, here, you're going to save so much money. But Joe, I've already lost so much. I could afford my prescriptions if everything else wasn't so highly priced.
And I'm glad you brought up that number. That is incredibly important because people say, well, the economy is good, this, and that. No, look at your spending power. Gas, I saw yesterday, $3.69 a gallon in Missouri. Everything. I mean, the price of ground beef, my goodness, man, it's just insane. So if they're telling you the economy is doing good when it's not, your spending power over the past 2.5 years. Look at that.
I heard the term recently, silent depression, that we're no longer it's not the Great Depression, it's the silent depression, where we're feeling the effects, but we're not talking about it, and it's not as public, but a lot of people are really getting the squeeze. Okay, so we are ending or nearing the end of the search down in Maui. The count of those individuals who have died stands at 115, although there are a lot of folks still missing. So that search they're moving on to trying to clean up some of the hazardous waste to try to get that back. But obviously there are a lot of families there still missing loved ones. And then, of course, a lot of the resources are now moving over to Florida with this Hurricane Idalia. We've got people on the news in the wind with the water up already. And I suspect we're going to see that all day. But I think it's, Category 3 as it heads toward Florida right now?
Yeah, I think it's been shifting. I think as high as a Cat 4 overnight. And so the Missouri, based right here in mid-Missouri, Task Force 1 did a lot of work in Hawaii, and now going straight off, they're headed to Pensacola, Florida right now to help with recovery efforts there.
We also got some sad news yesterday. Representative Steve Scalise said that he has been diagnosed with a blood cancer, that he is undergoing treatment, but I liked this statement from him. I will tackle this with the same strength and energy I have tackled past challenges. Of course, went through a lot after he was wounded in 2017.
Anyway, The walls are closing in, John. For real this time. It's on Fox yesterday. More allegations coming out. The latest allegation from the National Archives says that they've turned over several thousand documents that potentially could have pseudonyms or nicknames for the big guy. In other words, tying Joe Biden to a lot of these emails via the use of his nicknames. I'm not saying Joe Biden, the vice president. This is as it relates to Hunter Biden and his son being on the board of Burisma and the Ukraine stuff, and Joe Biden allegedly making money off of his name while he was vice president of the United States.
But I've heard people describe these as Hillary problems, and she's still running free, so I don't think the walls are closing in.
She's a Teflon Don.
I think the soundbite might have had it wrong. The walls aren't falling on Joe Biden. He's falling on the walls.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
There's Mr. Marsh.
That was good.
Well, good points on a Feel Good Friday at 8:35 when we pick winners and losers of the week. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Brian Hausworth is here too.
Stephanie's finishing up her snack from the last news break.
874-9390. 874-9390. By the way, there's an AI-created Donald Trump rap song.
Did you do this? Did you do this?
No.
Are you sure?
I don't get onto the Chat GPT anymore because I got like a real... I'm in a real relationship now.
A real friend.
I don't need...
Breaking news.
So I don't need...
You used to use ChatGPT as just a friend to chat with. Now you have a real friend.
I'm a real boy.
You know how hard it is to break up with ChatGPT? Dear...
I want the transcript from this.
GPT. I have found a real human being, so it's time. Now at the age of 52, 2 marriages, 2 divorces, 1 child, and it's time to move on. So Trump has an AI-generated song.
Your face is red.
Is it?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's hot in here, John.
It is kind of warm.
Has she reached back out to you, ChatGPT? She said, I've been missing you.
No, neither has the woman that I'm having a real relationship either with. Come to think of it, actually.
It's like when you
now.
It's like when you haven't checked your email inbox in a while and it'll send you a notification on your phone. We miss you. You haven't checked in a while.
Yeah, sorry, ChatGPT. I've moved on. But anyhow, it's an AI-generated song, and it's up there on the iTunes chart, apparently number 2. This, according to Forbes magazine. By the way, 1 hour from now, Democrat State Representative David Tyson Smith in studio, and the whole purpose of this conversation, it's not to debate, it's not to prove who's right and wrong, it's to sit down and say, David, seriously, why do Democrats think the economy is okay? Why do Democrats keep getting on the TV and saying the economy is good? Why do Democrats keep getting on the TV and saying Joe Biden needs to show people how good the economy has been? Why do they keep doing it? Why do you think this way? Why do you think it's okay for a child under the age of 18 to get transgender surgery? Why do you think these things? We don't need to debate. Just want to hear what you have to say. That's at 7:35 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Vivek Ramaswamy. On MSNBC yesterday, speaking with Andrea Mitchell, and she's talking about climate change. And, we had a hurricane, climate change. We had a fire in Hawaii. It's all because of climate change. And he's talking about the deaths, the number of deaths because of the climate.
I can offer clear evidence that the number of climate disaster-related deaths is down by 98% over the last century. The number of people who died of hurricanes, tornadoes, heat waves, and other weather-related events in 1920, for every 100 that died then, 2 die today.
And context. So
Can
while
you knock on wood though, for sure? That sounds like we're asking for it.
I'm like, oh, come on.
Kind of tempted fate a little bit there.
Yeah.
I've been to Yellowstone and seen how the earth is bubbling up, and they said we're overdue.
That is the largest volcano on the planet. That's just a giant volcano with a bunch of pinpricks in it, in effect. That's why we go, oh, look at this steam coming out of this volcano. It's going to blow one day.
Isn't the New Madrid fault line?
Yeah.
We had 2 earthquakes there last week, I think.
Oh.
Didn't we? Am I making that up?
Probably. There's aren't there earthquakes along the fault every day, but they're real low on the Richter scale, 2.3s and something like that.
Yeah, they still have a lot of them, but like you said, you don't feel the vast majority of them.
So Mr. Ramaswamy is telling Andrea Mitchell on MSNBC, and here's some context, by the way. The whole time he's saying, well, the number of deaths down 98% over the past 100 years, and I can't wait to run this through the O'Reilly factor. She's nodding her head. Nope. So let's run it through the O'Reilly factor.
Look at what you just stepped in. You are about to enter the no zone. This is the O'Reilly factor with Branden Rathert.
Yes, I hit Brandon with a stick.
All right, so GOP presidential contender Vivek Ramaswamy is saying deaths were down like 98% over the past 100 years from earthquakes, heat, cold, tornadoes, hurricanes, things like that. Sounds like a pretty remarkable claim. Is it true? Yeah.
How?
It's true. So my first thought, without getting into the science of it and without doing any research on it and not getting onto Google or to Wikipedia or to ChatGPT, because we broke up now. We ain't a thing no more.
So you're guessing.
Structures, stronger structures. So fewer people in homes dying from tornadoes and the hurricanes and stuff like that. The advent of air conditioning. Fewer people die of heat and maybe more education. But I'm thinking over 100 years, and again, I don't know the science, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm guessing the population of the planet has increased a little bit over the past 100 years, so now you got a larger pool. But according to two different sources that I did Google this morning, one is worldindata.org, and I'll show you the chart if you're watching on our Facebook page or if you're watching on our YouTube channel. If we could zone in on that a little bit, please, Hannah. It will show you the numbers from 100 years ago all the way down to current time. So I thought, well, so that's just one source.
Yeah, but your thing about structures, I've even heard as we prepare for Idalia, in that people were saying the place where it's going to hit, they're really nervous because it has older structures and they're not as likely to withstand some of these storm surges as, some of the other newer areas.
Checked another source, gapminder.org. Kind of a cool website. They show like numbers and show very visual stuff to help you get your head around this stuff a little bit easier. And, they say the very same thing. As a matter of fact, you look at the chart there, and so it's a second source. So Vivek Ramaswamy been through the O'Reilly factor here on the show, and what he said yesterday on MSNBC was accurate.
The guy does his research.
He's a pretty smart dude. I hate what's happening to Ron DeSantis in Florida. So he's dealing with a natural disaster, Hurricane Idalia. And then the progressive news outlets, what they've done with that Jacksonville shooting. It's like, Ron DeSantis, because he was governor of Florida and he did this thing that hurt black people. That's why this dude, who, by the way, was on meds for psychiatric conditions, he had been suicidal before. The dude had mental health issues, and yeah, he was a racist, apparently. They're going after DeSantis for that. So they're using the tragedy of what happened with that shooting in Jacksonville. They're using that to indict Ron DeSantis. I don't think anything he has done as governor of Florida made that dude, who had been on psychiatric medications, had various issues over the years. I don't think anything Ron DeSantis did make that dude go, you know what, I'm going to go and kill some black people. So they're using that to go after the guy. And you want some more presidential news? You want to hear the Trump song? Or do you want to hear the entire city of St. Charles is taking a page from Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and something we did on the show here several months ago and something we've done before here on the show. The mayor of St. Charles, he's asking residents to do something. You want to do that, or you want to hear the Trump song? Let's hear the Trump song.
Okay.
So
You're really excited about the Trump song.
I was. And then
do you feel guilty about moving on from ChatGPT that you want to?
There's no such thing as an easy breakup, Steph. So I was excited to hear it, and then I heard it, and I wasn't so much, but a lot of folks are. Number 2 on for
I assume iTunes. Number 1 is still Oliver Anthony?
Oliver Anthony still has the number 1 song, Old Rich Men North of Richmond. Here's the Trump song. Now, this is AI generated, and so it's kind of taken on the personality of this is Trump the day after he was booked at Georgia. And Trump writing a song.
To where I started, I don't need to do the race. I'ma beat them RICO charges. And if I go to prison, you can't do me like the Clintons. I'll be laid up, eating steak with Secret Service, chilling, screaming, Orange Man bad. The whole world mad. Thug life, shout out all of my MAGA base shads. Coming for the deep state.
It's AI. That's not really Trump. It's AI. One of the lines in the song goes like this. My mugshot is worth a billy, as in billion. My mugshot is worth a billy. Sold some merch and made a milli.
$7 million.
$7 million. Gosh. And I'm wondering, maybe we should compare these later. Who rapped better, AI Trump or Vivek Ramaswamy when he was rapping some Eminem stuff? There's a little kid in Oklahoma, 5 years old, and this is it's a reminder of who we're hiring to do these jobs post-government pandemic of 2020. This 5-year-old kid in Oklahoma, he gets dropped off at the wrong bus stop coming home from school, 5 years old. Good thing it was only 105 that day.
Oh, it's one of my worst fears.
Yeah, this poor little 5-year-old kid and his soon-to-be stepsister officially get off the bus, and they start roaming around. They're lost. They're 5 years old. They don't know where to go. Goes up to a Ring doorbell, and what he said to this Ring doorbell, it's like, wow. We're going to hear that coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
S&P 500 up 64.
Coming up 8:25 in the Morning Bell, we'll look at your futures. It's the Morning Bell with Stephanie Bell, business news with a little twist and that's the best part of it. For me, it's not the business news, Hannah. It's the twist. That's the part that does it for me when we do the Morning Bell. Every morning with Stephanie Bell, 8:25 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Welcome into the show. Coming up 7:10, Raven Harrison is going to be here talking about what's going on in national politics, her point of view on this stuff, man. I mean, she is like wicked sharp. RavenHarrison.com. Democrat State Representative David Tyson Smith joins us 7:35 here in the studio. Just a sit-down conversation like why do Democrats think this way? Like a fact-finding process, a fact-finding mission. John, we don't want to debate. We don't want to argue. We don't want to prove who's right. We just want to know why. Why do you all think that way?
He's a pretty straightforward guy. We've had good discussions with him in the past.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. He's here at 7:35. Let your friends know. Hey, Democrat coming on the show to explain why they think the way they think.
And you don't care who's right?
Well, it's not about who's right. I'm just like, why? Do you really think, for example, transgender surgeries for people under the age of 18, life-altering surgery, you can't get a tattoo? But why do you think that is okay? And maybe personally he disagrees with that stand. I don't know. But just like, why? And why do people keep getting on the TV and telling me the economy's okay? Back to earlier, you talked about the silent depression.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot on socials about that. And
So-
they said basically if you go back to the Great Depression and you see what people were earning at that time and you figure out how much money that is today, that a lot of people are worse off than some of the people I have not fact checked this. But I want to go in and look and see if those facts are correct, because I do think there are a lot of people who are silently struggling. And I think one way we kind of know this is, there's been a lot of reporting about how much people are in debt, how much is on credit cards, how much, and so I think during the Great Depression, it was kind of like, okay, we're talking about it. We know we're in it. We've all admitted, and we're all in this together. And I think there are a lot of people at home who go to sleep at night and who know they're really struggling, but they're not able to, talk about it publicly with their employer or with their friends or their family, and kind of that all in this together because we're in denial.
People driving to work right now, 6:55 in the morning, getting ready for Labor Day weekend. By the way, weather's looking good all the way up through Monday, but driving to work going, okay, I got this, I got to do groceries, how much is that going to cost? The kids' new school stuff costs this, and I got that, my 401k, I dare not check that. We go back to the pollings that talk about right direction, wrong direction for the country, and they have consistently shown, especially since January the 20th of 2021, that Americans say that overwhelmingly America is headed in the wrong direction. To me, that has always spoken about the psyche of where we are as a country, or as they're calling it now, the silent depression. In Oklahoma, this little kid, now the kid's back to school. I wonder about this. We've had our own issues with bus drivers around mid-Missouri, ain't we, John?
Yeah, especially if you're a mailbox.
There was just the one.
Just the one.
Yeah, but he got it twice, so that counts,
But this kid, 5-year-old kid in Oklahoma, he gets off the school bus. He's in kindergarten. He's got his little stepsister with him. They get off the bus, and they realize, this don't look like my house. They're 5 years old. I'm guessing they ain't got a cell phone to do the GPS. And also 5 years old, I don't know how good your sense of direction is when you get dropped off where that ain't your house. So this kid and this little girl, they just start wandering around.
Yeah, at 5 years old, they're telling you, make sure they kind of know your phone number, know your address. But even if you memorized your address, if you're not on your, I don't think my kids would have known.
No.
They weren't on maybe if they were on our street.
Well, if you want me to memorize our phone number, that's cool, Mom, but give me a cell phone.
Right.
I know I'm only 5, but if you want me to memorize the phone number, I'm also going to need a cell phone. Oh, what? Just go and ask somebody on the street? But haven't you told me not to talk to strangers?
And they're working on tying their shoe.
So this kid finally, man, I think a lot of times we get put in tough situations, whether we're adults, kids, and we find a way to survive. We find a way to work it out. This kid starts walking around. He goes up to some house. He's like not even on his block, man. He goes up to some house and rings the doorbell. And it's got one of those Ring doorbell things. So there's video to this, and there's audio. And what this kid said to the door, he's talking to a door, Wow, check this out.
Would you help me find my mommy?
Man.
Aww.
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
And the woman, she's now said, listen, the bus driver didn't check because apparently they have, well, I want to call them tags, but that sounds like something you'd put on a dog. Not a tag, but like a lanyard with your name and everything. Bus driver didn't check. Apparently, there are several checks that are in place to make sure you ain't dropping 5-year-old kids off in the middle of nowhere when it's 105 degrees outside.
Or leaving them on the bus.
Or leaving them on the bus. But it goes back to, I wonder, not just in the service sector, but these people that are getting hired for jobs that maybe shouldn't be in these jobs. I have a good friend, I love the guy to death, 20 years in the Marines, then served in the Jefferson City Police Department. Dude's tough as nails. He's applying to drive a school bus. I'm like, dude, don't.
You kids better sit down.
This could either go very, very well or very, very badly.
I feel like everyone has like that one weird bus driver from when they were growing up, though.
Oh, I had one.
Hey, little dude.
I had a
economic growth from the bottom up. It's so much greater than even the experts in economic stuff expected it to be.
How are you feeling tonight? Are you feeling confident tonight? The Biden administration is crediting Bidenomics.
The economy is great. It's the Goldilocks economy. I don't recall an economy that is this good.
Our economy is doing so well.
But guess what? It's working.
Raven Harrison, RavenHarrison.com. Why do these people keep getting on the TV and telling me the economy is good, that Bidenomics is working? Why are they doing this?
Because that's all they can say, is you don't have any truth in advertising anymore. They can literally look at record inflation. I mean, that's not a state of mind. It's a fact. We have record inflation, highest it's been in 40 years. We have an unsecured border. We have, supply chain issues that have been plaguing us. We have baby formula issues. I mean, it's just round the clock. But what are you going to say to get elected? If you tell people the truth, you don't get elected. If you gaslight them, then at least you have the 50-50 shot of saying, okay, don't believe what you're seeing with your own eyes. Just listen to us. And trust me, we're from the government. We're here to help.
All right, Raven Harrison joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, 7:35, local Democratic State Rep David Tyson Smith in studio. And we want to talk about, I guess, Stephanie, we're not setting it up as a debate, really. Not to prove who's right.
No, we're trying to understand. And I think Representative Smith, he's a lawyer. He's got, he's educated. And I think, I wonder, behind closed doors, how he reconcile some of this, because obviously at the local level, we agree on some things like veterans issues and other things. But, to have to be a Democrat that justifies Joe Biden's actions, it has to be difficult some days.
Just ask Corinne Jean-Pierre, who must get incredibly frustrated doing backflips trying to back this guy. John Marsh is here, too. What would be a question you'd ask of Mr. David Tyson Smith, John?
I'd ask him about what he thinks of the Biden's administration and the way they handled the pullout in Afghanistan, especially after the Gold Star parents were on Capitol Hill. I know Raven watched that one.
Yeah, that was...
Amen.
Man, did you see... So one of the guys that testified in this thing yesterday... By the way, I'm Branden Rathert. Welcome to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Some numbers that show Trump is beatable in early states. A new political song keeps political music locking down the top spots on iTunes. A Missouri dad lets Joe have it. And somebody finally said, I've had enough of idiot progressives protesting in the middle of highways, and rammed their car through a barricade these people had to set up. Forgive me for laughing, but it was beautiful, and I think we have all been waiting for years to see that happen. Somebody did it. Some of the things we were covering for you this morning. Raven Harrison, RavenHarrison.com, does a lot of stuff with Fox. She's in political consulting, joining us on the show now, because there are a lot of things out there, and living in Texas. The other thing, why do they keep telling us the border is secure? We've got people right now this morning busted just a couple of days ago in mid-Missouri. They're sitting in the Boone County Jail, trafficking fentanyl. We had some other arrests. We're getting these all the time. The fentanyl comes from Mexico. Why do they keep telling us the border is secure?
Because the truth sucks, and they like telling people what they think they want to hear. I have people who literally go onto my page who live in Missouri, who live in different parts of the world, telling me, no, the border is secure. How do you know the border is? I live here. So we absolutely, and I've been there. So these people choose to take their spoon feedings from mainstream media, who will say exactly what they need to say, because that's how you win elections. Oh, yeah, the border is closed. And they use these word salads of the border is closed. The border is not closed. It is not secure. It is not being enforced. I mean, there's just nothing. And they talk about immigration reform. How about we enforce the laws that are on the books before we start putting in a bunch they're not going to enforce? That is the bottom line. Is people, there's a process to come to America legally. Period. Stop. It involves vetting. It involves screening. It involves making sure that we have now, which is we've had leprosy come across the border. We have typhus spiking, scarlet fever spiking. None of those people are checked for COVID. I mean, but yet you're locking down Americans, and you're trying to go to communism 2.0 with the mask, mandates. And this is what people should be mindful of. There's just no way they can claim any moral ground on pandemics and safety of American citizens when they've got our border wide open to drugs and crime and cartels.
Now, we are expecting Vivek Ramaswamy in Missouri today, and he was going to be at this restaurant, and they went a bit woke and said, you know what, we're not going to have this event. Basically, 48 hours before the event. They're catching a lot of hate on socials, but as a conservative, I struggle a little bit because also, it's a private business. And if I don't want to, serve certain people or have this event, I should, shouldn't I have some control over my own business? How do you square those things?
Well, I square it by reminding people. I mean, I know this better than most. Both my parents are retired Air Force colonels. My husband's a retired C-17 pilot. And I'm telling you, that is the essence of freedom. The essence of freedom means that I don't like when people burn flags, but I have to respect their right to do that. If that's the way they want to repay people who have died for their ability to live the lives they want to live, then I have to accept that that's what freedom is. Freedom means, and I agree with you, and that means that I have to accept the fact that certain things are going to make my blood boil, but that I have to either I embrace freedom or I don't. And freedom means, if you don't agree with me, you still have certain rights under the Constitution. So I agree with you on that. Not pleased to hear that, but, every business used to have the right to refuse service to anybody. They used to decide. And I think that private businesses should have that right. If you're not going to force people to bake cakes, that go against their religion, then you have to allow them to do this.
And I think the bigger issue in this situation, the restaurant said, yes, we will host it, put out flyers. They succumbed to the woke crowd. I think that's the bigger thing. You said you were going to do it, and then you got pressure, and you didn't have any morals or principles to stand on and say, we said we were going to do this. But now we're not because, pressure. Raven Harrison, RavenHarrison.com, hanging out with us on the show this morning. I do want to get your take. I know we're a week past it now, but everybody whose political opinions and chops I respect, you included, I've been asking them because we had a fascinating conversation Thursday. Everybody here on the show that watched the debate on TV, we're like, Vivek Ramaswamy took the spotlight. Stephanie Bell was there, and Thursday morning she called into the show, and she's like, no, I have a totally different take. It was DeSantis. Okay. What was your take?
Well, mine is based on a few things. One, I have to watch the statistical and the poll information going up to this. I watched the debate, and I've since watched the information and the feedback going after, so I would disagree. DeSantis has not spiked in the polls. There's nothing that supports that he did a fantastic job. Looks like he was kind of very middle of the road, according to, everybody I saw. I watched the debate, and I thought that, Vivek Ramaswamy grabbed the headlines, but for not the way everybody was thinking. I think he handled himself well. He was the person that was being attacked. The target was definitely on his back, not DeSantis, even though DeSantis was the second place. But that's what I would say is, it's definitely an interesting take. She has a vantage point that a lot of us didn't have to be there, but I don't know what the crowd was feeling when they were there, but I can just tell you that his poll numbers, nothing reflects that he did an awesome job.
I liken it to people that don't like hockey. You take them there for a different perspective. You take them to the debate. You take them to the hockey game, and they get a completely different perspective of hockey, and more often than not, they fall in love with it. You a fan of the hockey there, Raven?
Love, I'm from the old school where, I went to a fight and occasionally a hockey game broke out. So that's what we like. And with my first game, I didn't realize they had a rule that, you had to keep fighting until somebody hits the ground. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. This is the best sport ever.
Right? That's a true story. If you get into, if they get into a little fight, refs ain't going to break it up until they hit the ground. I do love that aspect
Correct.
About NHL hockey. Raven Harrison.
Apologies to Bobby Hull.
Well, you got to get that. If we could do that in government, just settle it until, the last one standing. Hey, we might be onto something.
Raven Harrison, RavenHarrison.com, joining us this morning here on the show. So, of course, and we see this, every time there's, a campaign, you see infighting in both parties because that's the nature of the beast when you have several Republicans running against other Republicans. Party infighting, Republican Party, Democrat Party. Who's the biggest sufferer right now?
American taxpayers. But you see it in different sides. We've got impeachments here. The Republican-led House impeached the Attorney General, even though he's been, suing the Biden administration and winning a lot of cases. And then on the flip side, you've got like now mayors like Mayor Adams, who is at war with Biden because he wants billions of dollars in aid when he claimed to be a sanctuary city. And Biden is tap dancing around that right now because he wants to send it to Ukraine and other places that are not America. So that's what you've got is now you're seeing these people coming out of now he's starting to be critical. People are starting to be critical because of these policies they embraced. You know, you asked for all these illegals. You actually said, hey, you know, we'll take them. And then now you've got, oh, wait, never mind. This isn't a good idea. And now they need billions of dollars in aid. The streets are clogged. And New York looks a lot like San Francisco now, another sanctuary, you know, state. So that's what you're seeing is the in-party fighting. But we should really be paying attention. It'll be an interesting question for your guest coming up. It's not to attack him. It's just to ask, you know, what is your statistical background on this? What are you basing the economy as good on? You know, is it anything astrological or the signs or any kind of, or is it actually the fact that, you know, we've never had inflation this high and it's been this high for 2 years? I mean, their economy is not like a guessing game. There is a formula for a recession. There's a formula for interest rates, which are going up. So I would be very interested just to hear, are you going to represent your constituents or are you going to hold this party line no matter how ridiculous it is? That's a question I would ask a Democrat or a Republican.
All right. David Tyson Smith, local state rep, Democrat, in Studio 735. Want to find out why Democrats think the way they do. And Raven, if you would like to listen to that segment, you can get onto your smartphone and you can download the apps for 939theeagle.com and KWOS.com. New and improved apps. Hannah has redesigned them. They are sharp, just like our guest, Raven Harrison. You can listen that way. So download those new apps onto your smartphones. 939theeagle.com, KWOS.com. Raven, we appreciate your time. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds great.
All right, we'll see you then. Coming up 5 minutes from now, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah.
Well, Brandon, now that you've moved on in your relationship with AI...
I'm no longer dating ChatGPT.
We have a new concern with AI to focus on.
All right, so what's the next thing we need to be worried about? It's coming up at 7:20. with Hannah.
I almost said it's a feel-good Friday, but I forget that just because it's my Friday doesn't mean it's everyone's Friday. And yes, I'm rubbing it in just a little bit. Sorry.
What's hot with Hannah today?
So, Branden, you've moved on from your relationship, I guess we could call it, with
ChatGPT.
Yeah, with AI. So we have a new AI concern that I think we need to focus on, and it involves Amazon and wild mushrooms. I guess there is an abnormally large number of books that are targeted for beginner foragers about wild mushrooms.
Now, is it wild mushrooms or wild shrooms? John, I think there's a difference between
That's magic mushrooms.
mushrooms or is it shrooms?
Ask Representative Lovasco on that one, right?
For whatever reason, not magic mushrooms, wild mushrooms, because again, there is a difference. Wild mushrooms, obviously, it's like a little bit of Russian roulette. You got to really know what you're doing if you choose to consume mushrooms that have grown in the wild, because some of them are totally edible and safe, and others are not and could cause pretty serious health problems or death.
Others will kill you. Some taste good, some get you high, and others will kill you.
Yeah, and there's lots of books on the types of mushrooms that are edible, the types of mushrooms that you can cook with, the ones that are safe, and apparently folks are using AI to write these mushroom books.
Oh, God.
And they're not very accurate.
No.
And for whatever reason, there's a large number of these AI written books on Amazon specifically about mushrooms. And folks are saying, hey, we need to take these down.
Hey, ChatGPT, we need to talk.
It's not hard to believe that people sitting in their basement writing books with AI are like, what should I write about, as they look at their bag of magic mushrooms? They're like, you know what, I'll write about mushrooms.
Well, and the scary thing is, if you're just looking at the Amazon listing of this book, it's really hard to tell that it was written by AI. They make it sound like it's a real person with real credentials, a person who knows what they're talking about when it comes to mushrooms. And people are finding out the hard way, which is...
I wrote a news story when we were first trying ChatGPT, and it was about economics, and it gave me a list. Here's some reading material you might enjoy. And we went and checked the books. Most of them didn't even exist.
Yeah, well, there's a specific author that they think might be AI generated who has published dozens of books just over the last several months. And the article is talking about how that's pretty improbable, and it's a lot of cookbooks and nutrition books. And that can be kind of scary.
Isn't that what they call it when ChatGPT gets stuff wrong? They call it's hallucinating.
Yeah.
Maybe ChatGPT is eating mushrooms itself.
What about this AI-generated stuff?
Orange man bad, the whole world mad. Thug life, shout out all of my MAGA base shads. Coming for the deep state.
It's an AI-generated Trump song called First Day Out of Jail. Purported to be written by Trump, sounding like Trump. It's not Trump, but it is, I'll tell you this, number 2 on the iTunes chart this morning.
So yeah, if you're looking to purchase any books on Amazon about foraging for wild mushrooms,
Is
you
there
might
a
wanna be
warning
careful.
label? Is there like a warning label on the book? Warning, this book was written by ChatGPT. This book could kill you.
No, there's not. That's the scary part. They make AI credentials for this fake author, make it look totally legit.
I don't make it a habit to go doling out advice.
growth from the bottom up. It's so much greater than even the experts in economic stuff expected it to be.
How are you feeling tonight? Are you feeling confident tonight? The Biden administration is crediting Bidenomics.
The economy is great. It's the Goldilocks economy. I don't recall an economy that is this good.
Our economy is doing so well.
But guess what? It's working.
We've invited in State Representative David Tyson Smith. We hate to put labels on stuff, but that's what we do in the political arena, Mr. Smith. He is a Democrat, reps an area in Columbia. He's joining us on the show this morning. And just so you know, right off the bat, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you, especially as a new listener, joining me and Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, Brian Houseworth, and John Marsh here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We've been very clear about this. We just want to sit, and it's like we're curious, Mr. Smith.
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely. Why do you think this way? And sure. We don't want to debate. We don't want to try to prove who's right, because we already know who's right.
I appreciate
right?
that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But seriously, so just want to have a very frank and honest and open discussion.
Sure,
I'm coming at this from the point of I'm just curious. Mm-hmm. If you have a question you'd like to suggest, text 874-9390. Why do people like Joe Biden and Democrats keep getting on the TV and telling me the economy's good? What is the thinking behind that?
Well, that's a two-part question, really. I think the support for Joe Biden is primarily because he was the alternative to Trump last time, and I think he was the person that could get elected in the last presidential election. Now, as far as the economy, that's another issue. I listened to some of these sound bites. I don't know that anyone realistically on the ground is saying this is the greatest economy of all time in the history of the country. It's not the worst either. I think we're steady. Yeah. Gas prices are down, but food prices are still up. Yeah. So that's still an issue. I don't like going to the grocery store and paying more for my favorite salmon that I get all the time. So yeah, I don't know that this is like the most robust, wonderful economy ever, but I also don't think it's in the tank either.
So, but you're kind of falling away from Joe Biden in the White House when they keep coming and saying the economy's good, or the people on MSNBC and CNN. You're not necessarily in agreement with them when they keep talking about how the economy's good.
Well, I think there's a middle ground. I don't think the economy is bad. It's been worse. I think it's better. And I'm not trying to equivocate or give a politician's answer, but I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think the economy is good. Obviously, it could be better. I think we have an inflation issue. We are not in a recession. I think people thought that it was predicted that we're going to roll into this horrible recession. It has not happened yet, so that's good. I think we're in a good place, but obviously we can be in a better place.
Okay, and again, not a debate, not an argument. The social issues, for example, like Democrats, a lot of them, and I don't know if you're in this kind. I know you've got kids and
sure.
But people that think it's okay for a child under 18 to get transgender surgery, life-changing surgery. Mm-hmm. When we see, hey, a lot of times in this clinic at WashU, New York Times confirming pretty much everything that whistleblower said about, these are just a lot of mental health issues. And I get it when you're dealing with a kid who has mental health issues, you want to do whatever you can. But why do Democrats think that it's okay and in Washington, state of Washington, under 18 with no parental consent? Why do Democrats think that's okay?
That's an interesting question. I can't speak to Washington. One of the issues I think we have at the Capitol, and I think as Democrats that we have, and just someone who loves public service, a lot of these issues are created as wedge issues. So when I go out and I talk to people, over 40% of the people in my district are Republicans. They're not talking about this. People care about roads. There's talk they're going to close exit 128, and a lot of people got upset because that affects a lot of the businesses on the business loop. And I'm not, diverting the question here. A lot of these issues are wedge issues.
But you are, David.
No,
friendly.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
The point is, a lot of these are wedge issues. People out there in the streets, when you go door to door, they don't talk about these issues. And so when you show up in Jefferson City and the Republican Party says, okay, we're going to focus on, whether it's gender affirming care or athletes can, transitioning athletes can compete in other sports. And you're talking probably about less than 10 people in Missouri. And there's more bills filed than there are the people in Missouri that's affecting. And there's so many other issues to focus on. After the gender affirming care bill was passed out of the House, I was getting ready to go on Scott Fahn's show in the Capitol, his Missouri Times show, or This Week in Politics. And a Republican came up to me, a high-ranking Republican in the House, and he said, we don't even know the science behind all of this. And what he was talking about was, in that bill that you're referring to, there's a provision that if you're getting some type of puberty blockers or whatever, it has to stop within, 6 months or whatnot. He said, we just threw that dart at the board. We don't even know about that. We just made that up. And is it safe to do these things? So that's, really where I come at this issue is like, is the science behind it? Do we know that you can stop this or that at this time? Or is it just, let's put this out there because we want to get everybody talking about this as opposed to other issues?
Sure. And even if it is a wedge issue, I still fail to see how somebody thinks it's okay for somebody under the age of 18 to get life-altering surgery for what is, in a lot of circumstances, they're just being kids. They think they're this, they think they're that. Why do you relate with Democrats that think that's okay? Do you think it's okay for somebody under the age of 18 to have this kind of surgery?
One of the problems with this issue is, a lot of the stories that come out of this and what's really happening. I'm not an expert in a lot of these issues, whether the kids are having surgeries or it's just a hormone issue. It did not come through the committee I was on, although I did sit through the committee and I voted against this bill. So I don't know how much of this is actually, children having sex assignment surgeries as opposed to something else, and how much of this is actually, this boogeyman that we're hearing about, other than, hey, let's just put this out there, get everyone all riled up. So we're talking about it. I mean, that's what people want. They want.
But all that aside, do you think that's okay? Do you think it's okay for somebody to get surgery like that under the age of 18? The issue part aside, why do Democrats go, this is a good idea?
Again, I don't think it's so much that Democrats are, I think Democrats care about people, right? And they want to make sure that people's mental health issues are taken care of. One of the issues that I've heard is that, and someone testified at one of the committees, is that there was a suicide issue when children's issues are not dealt with, when you just say you can't do this or you can't do that. Again, I don't pretend to be an expert on the issue, but I do know that I think these are political wedge issues. And I'm disappointed that we spend so much time dealing with these issues. And I will tell you this, one of the issues with the university, I believe there was a grandfather clause for some children to have, whether they're getting a hormone therapy or whatever, to be ushered in, and they wouldn't be affected by this bill. So my understanding, the university is not going to honor what's in the bill, because they're afraid of getting sued. Yeah. And I think they should follow the law, and I don't think they should be kind of doing their own thing.
I think we found some unity, because I've also been frustrated about where we're spending our time. And for example, when we talk about, girls playing boys sports or boys playing girls sports, it affects a very small number of people, whereas an issue that's important to me, like education reform, could affect many, 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 all children across Missouri. So it sounds like what you're telling us is that you think Republicans are focusing on the wrong priorities. So, in your perfect world, say the Democrats had a majority, what would be, the top three issues? If you were able to pick the priorities and we weren't focusing on, these issues, what issues do you think we should be focusing on?
Well, I also believe in education. I think we need to fund education. Unfortunately, in Missouri, we're at the bottom in funding schools, public schools. I need to make sure we have schools funded properly. Teachers need to be paid. So I'm a believer in that. I want to make sure our elections are fair. I'm on the elections committee. I want to make sure we have fair criminal justice laws that don't overly penalize people. So those are some of the things I think about. And here's what's interesting about the issue. When you talk about focusing too much on this, especially the sports deal, where this affects maybe 10 kids, fourth graders in Joplin or wherever. Why aren't we talking about primarily roads? We got the I-70 bill passed as far as money, but that should have been the priority. Representative May, who's a Republican, has a bill about catalytic converters to stop the theft of catalytic converters. And I tweaked some of the language on that bill, came through my committee a couple of years ago. Why wasn't that a priority? I mean, that is an epidemic in Columbia and it's in Missouri. But we're going to show up in Jefferson City and say, hey, let's deal with fourth grade soccer players who are transitioning, 10 of them, when we could have stopped that epidemic. And that wasn't our priority. By the way, that didn't pass. It passed out of the House, but it got bogged down in the Senate.
So as we move forward here, I want to remind everybody of kind of what our mission is with having you here on the show. It's to try to learn why Democrats are thinking about some of these things. So I know that, we did the I-70 stuff. I know that. I'm reminding everybody kind of what we want to do here is why Democrats think the way they do. State Representative David Tyson Smith, who's a Democrat, been kind enough to join us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning.
Representative, when we all sat down together at the governor's prayer breakfast, and you were nice enough to join us that morning, you talked to us about the bill that you'd sponsored, barring anyone under the age of, 20 from buying semi-automatic firearms. Is that issue something that's going to return to the State House when you come back to Jefferson City in January?
Very possibly. Who am I speaking with, by the way? I hear this
John
voice.
Marsh, yeah.
I hear this voice coming from the cloud.
Voice.
It's the voice in your head, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I'm looking around everyone in the room like nobody's talking. What's happening here? Great question. I think it will. I'm going to file it again. And basically what I did is I filed a bill banning teenagers from purchasing semi-automatic weapons on their own. If you look at some of these tragic shootings, whether it be the Uvalde massacre, there's a shooting in Buffalo, New York, and even close to home in St. Louis, it was a teenager who went out and lawfully bought an AR-15, several boxes of ammo, and then went out and murdered people. I don't think teenagers need to be doing that. You have to be 21 to buy a handgun, right? So why can a teenager go out and buy an AK-47? I don't think that's right.
All right, our guest, David Tyson Smith. Can you hang out for a few more minutes?
Sure, absolutely.
So here's how important this conversation is to us. Every morning about 7:50, John Marsh does something called "And That Would Be All Except for This." We're going to preempt that segment and continue our visit with you up until about 8 o'clock. David Tyson Smith. Why do Democrats think the way they do? Brian Hausworth has some questions, too, with the state representative who's been kind enough to come in and join us. We'll continue our conversation with him about 5 minutes from now.
39, S&P 500 up 64.
Morning Bell coming up at 8:25. We'll look at your futures and Morning Bell business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
If you went all Sim City and decided to build your own city, who would you pick to build it? I don't think you, Brandon, would pick
No.
these guys, but somebody is buying up land in California, and you will be interested to hear what they plan to do.
It's coming up at 8:25. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, John Marsh, Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, producer Hannah is all here. We're doing, so usually this time every morning we do, that would be all except for this. And John, you had a real tasty story this morning, didn't you?
Kind of did, but we'll tease,
he sounds
we'll tease
bitter.
something about cops and barbecue for tomorrow.
I said, yeah, I kind of did, Brandon. That did actually have something really cool. Maybe we can drop that later in the show. We've invited in Democrat State Representative David Tyson Smith. It's something we'd kind of talked about for a while. Like, hey, come in, and we just want to get some perspective on the mindset of a Democrat. Not a debate.
It's funny you say that as if we're aliens or something.
I know.
We want to understand the mindset. How can you be a Democrat?
But David, since you and I have that kind of relationship,
Sure, absolutely.
There's a lot of times I really do try to understand it by virtue to an extent of what I do. I try not to exaggerate, banging on the desk and all that. But there's some stuff I'm dumb. I'm just like, how are you coming up with that? For example, I know Juneteenth celebration. You were addressing people and saying they're trying to take your voting rights, trying to do all that stuff. And we look around the country. If we look at facts, they said the same thing in Georgia about the Georgia voting laws. Mm-hmm. Black voting actually went up. So when you say, or when Democrats as a whole, not the space aliens, but when Democrats as a whole think, well, these people are trying to take our rights. What makes you say that? What makes you think or believe that?
Well, in Georgia, when there was a move to get more people registered to vote, and 50,000 more people registered years ago, Georgia had a Democrat's U.S. senator. And so ever since then, there's been legislation, these omnibus, meaning bills that have like a multitude of provisions that are running through state houses that have a lot of provisions that look like they're designed to slow down the vote, to make it more difficult to vote, to get people to register to vote. And here's what I'm talking about. I'm on the elections committee. And one of the provisions that has come through and passed is that if you're going to get more than 10 people to register to vote, then you have to register to vote. You have to send in a registration. Well, what's the point of that? All that does is slow things down because it's just a piece of paper that you fax in.
But it's not slowing it down the way I see it. It's not slowing it down for a certain group of people.
Well, sure it is. I mean, if you say, for example,
what's the group of people?
So for example, normally you might have an event at the park, and people say, "Hey, show up, take a voter registration packet, put it on 50 doors in your community." Just to get people to register. It doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans, just to get them to register. But now I can't do that. Now I have to go and before I take a packet, I have to go fill out a form somewhere and send it in. And I don't even think anyone's reviewing the form. I don't think anyone follows up. There's nothing on the form but just your name and some basic information. But especially if it's on a Saturday, now I can't do that because the Secretary of State's office is probably closed and I probably can't get it in. So why? There's no purpose of that other than to make sure that people aren't blanketing the city with voter registration packets. It doesn't make sense. And the only logical reason is, hey, we want to slow this down. We don't want everyone to register.
We got about a minute left.
I think you need to make a party change. It sounds like you're a small government guy. It sounds like you're small. It sounds like you're with us.
Well, as we wrap up, do you consider yourself a progressive Democrat, middle of the road Democrat? How do you see yourself?
When I came to Jefferson City, my purpose was to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And I don't care who I'm working with. That's the goal, right? Mm-hmm. And I will work with Republicans. I work with Democrats, but I try to do the right thing every day. Mm-hmm. So if a bill comes through my committee and it's a good bill, I'm voting for it. I don't care who sponsored it. And I will work with anyone to get the right result.
As a matter of fact, that's when we set this up. It was Governor Parson was there on the business loop signing the I-70 bill, and you with a couple of at least some other local Democrat politicians were there. I think, and my recollection, there were two Democrat state reps. Sure. So we know that you do that. David Tyson Smith, We appreciate you coming in this morning.
Anytime.
And we appreciate your point of view on things.
Absolutely.
Coming up a little bit after 8 o'clock, hardest working states in America. Did Missouri land in the top 100 of the hardest working states of America? Who is number one? We'll cover that at 8:10. Good morning.
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Polls consistently show that a majority of the American people disapprove of the president's handling of the economy.
Eviction filing rates are soaring, 50% higher than they were before the pandemic.
Over half of Americans earning a six-figure salary report that they're actually living paycheck to paycheck.
Tens and tens of millions of people are struggling to put food on the table.
The number of homeless people on the streets and in shelters across the U.S. increased significantly this year.
Biden trying to rev up his economic vision for America, but a lot of people aren't buying it because they can't literally buy anything.
It'll just be the rich people enjoying life. Is that what you want? Because that's where we're headed.
Can't tell you how many people I know, young and older, especially, that are living in their cars. And living in their car, idiot.
Come on, man. You just got called out by a 15-year-old kid. You don't want people living in their cars, idiots. It's the economy, stupid. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
By the way, I loved your work on the Randy Toller show yesterday. Seriously. Hannah and I, first words this morning, coming in early this morning, what did we say?
She nailed it.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And then the second thing we said, why doesn't she do that here on the show more often?
Rude. Even after I complimented you on the show.
Well, but speaking of that compliment on the show, we brought in Doug Coda. We got some North Dakota stuff that we're going to talk about. This is Steph. Seriously, she nailed it. And if you're not listening to Tobler, man, he's here weekdays 4 to 6. Really good show.
Every morning after trying to contain Branden Rathert and his racing mind that's everywhere.
I really am.
That's
just
a good
trying
thing.
To keep up.
Yeah, his mind is a busy mind.
Mm-hmm.
That might sound like somebody say, hey, what do you think about Doug Burgum for president? Mm-hmm. That's like the same kind
He's got a good outside jump shot.
Mm-hmm. His busy mind and busy. I think I was thinking more busy schedule because, we compare our schedules sometime and you spend all your energy on the show, but I'll be like, can we talk about this today? And you're like, I got something today. I'm going, I need to clip the hedges outside my house, and that's it. That's what I can do.
And you do not want to get into a contest of comparing schedules with Stephanie Bell. I promise you that. You will lose every time.
Stephanie's schedule somehow has like 32 hours in every day. I don't understand.
The word we hear a lot when it comes to her schedule, aggressive. Aggressive, I like that.
Yesterday, Branden was stressing because he had one errand to run. Stephanie was making fun of him.
And I was like conferencing, radioing, training, all the things.
I had 2 errands. And it was
It's a full day. It's a full day.
13 hours here in the building. Producer Hannah, she is on her way out. She is getting married this weekend in Iowa, so she's gone tomorrow and Friday.
Hold on a second.
It's not this weekend?
Really?
Is it this weekend?
Remember, it's Black Friday?
Oh, yeah, the Black Friday game, halftime. Mizzou.
Fayetteville.
In Fayetteville. Hannah and her now fiance got to be married 50-yard line. Black Friday game, so she'll be out for a couple of days. And by the way, Monday, featuring Best Of. As a matter of fact, some of the stuff that we have coming up for Best Of. Remember the dude who called in and told us a story about falling off a 30-foot ladder?
Yes.
Yeah. That's in the Best Of.
Why am I laughing at that?
By the way,
he lived.
Yeah, he lived. Okay.
And you want to hear it because apparently there's a way you should fall off a 30-foot ladder, which I didn't know.
Straight down.
It was very strategic. It really was.
It's a pretty good segment. Brian running over an armadillo.
Again, I'm laughing.
The armadillo killer.
The armadillo killer. Brian Houseworth is here.
Destroying the bottom of my vehicle.
Oh,
and
no.
State Farm telling me that I couldn't get a tow because I lived 44 miles from the hotel. So I guess I could have walked home, but goodness gracious. But I was able to make it home. I actually had to stay in a hotel.
And you're not holding a grudge or anything,
I'm still
right?
a little perturbed.
destroyed the car.
Destroyed the bottom of the car. I mean, it would have woken everybody up to try to drive home. It would have been unsafe. Their policy is 50 miles or more. It was 44.
And the armadillo didn't fare so well
didn't
either.
make it.
No.
Didn't you drag it under your car for a couple miles?
It got stuck there underneath. Yes, that's what woke everybody up. It was terrible.
What did that sound like?
It sounded like artillery shells.
Were there sparks
and there was nowhere there. Well, I'm not sure about that, but there was nowhere to pull over. It would be approaching the tri-level. This would have been going eastbound on 50. There's no shoulder there by the steel plant there. And it was terrible. Very frustrating.
Could have been worse, Brian. You could have been
laughing so hard.
Could have been up Doug's neck of the woods and hit a buffalo.
Yes, exactly.
John Marsh is here. I'm Branden Rathert. Doug. We call him Doug Coda. So Doug is from North Dakota. And that's about all he's got going for him.
Really? That's about right. You got
Brandon's
that
in a
right.
mean old mood this morning. Poor Doug.
But he's offered some very valuable man on the street type of political insight, kind of the barstool politic kind of take on Doug Burgum. Who, by the way, Doug, I will tell him, by the way, Doug is actually Doug's name. He's actually in our creative services department they win awards nationwide all the time. He's a very talented individual.
Yeah, and we've also since learned that every male from South Dakota is named Doug.
It's North Dakota.
Or North Dakota, whatever. It's all the same.
She's out.
Canada, Alaska, whatever.
Canada, up north.
Sorry.
Listen, here's why I think I could vote for Doug Burgum. He's not even president yet. And the returns I'm seeing on my $1 investment into his campaign, he gave me $20 back. I don't even think Trump, Bush, either Bush or Reagan, I don't think I had that kind of return. Doug's not even president yet. But I want to ask you from your take, the debate. We've all got different takes, and I love this because me, Hannah, and Marsh, we all remember Marsh, our unanimous choice Thursday after the debate. Who do we think took the spotlight?
We like Vivek.
Stephanie, who was in the audience, said it was...
I said a tie, technically, between DeSantis and Vivek. I like Vivek, but a lot of people in the audience really thought DeSantis had a good night.
Your point of view, what did you think?
Burgum...
It wasn't Doug. All right.
He did okay. It's kind of lukewarm, the reception he's gotten from back home.
I was going to ask specifically, like folks in North Dakota, are they playing Homer on this, going like,
Not really. I haven't seen a lot of people just blindly, I'm going to vote for this guy. I mean, he wins the elections by, 60, 70% is usually what he gets for the voting. There's been kind of so not a lot of spark up there on it,
But I really thought he had a good night. I thought his answers were really good. He had a lot of kind of like states' rights, kind of like I live in North Dakota because I don't want to live in Virginia or California or wherever, and like leave us alone and let us decide for ourselves. And I feel like that's probably a pretty popular attitude up there in North Dakota.
Oh yeah, and I kind of mentioned that before too. He kind of alludes to that, well, what do you think about abortion, this and that. He always kind of goes back to, I think the states should decide that. That's kind of his thing, which I have no problem with. I mean, it's a republic, so.
I had a funny experience that night at the debate, and I was at the after party, and we were talking about Doug Burgum with this person who's popular on Twitter. He goes by Comfortably Smug, and he was anonymous for a while, but he's got a great Twitter account, very political. And I said, I wish Doug Burgum would have shown up without, the Achilles tear boot with like actual boots and a cowboy hat. And for us, like that whole area, people don't know the difference between North Dakota. I'm like, I wish he would have gone full Kevin Costner and just been like, kind of Yellowstone it, because it's so, I think like
he's done some print ads where he's out doing that, but I know he grew up on a farm, but I also know the farm, they were big farmers, but it was crop farming. It was right in the Red River Valley, just beautiful farmland. So I don't think he was a cowboy by any stretch.
Yeah. It's so popular, but I was talking to this guy who's pretty active on Twitter, and he said, I got to show you my text. He said, I texted the same thing to someone else today, that I think he should go full Yellowstone. And I think it would read really well with the audience. So I think he should stay in that lane.
And here's why it would have helped him, because if he's dressed like that, I'm guessing Brett and Martha would have given more questions, because why? Because the cameras are going to be on him, and it makes for great television.
Yeah.
But let me ask you. So on Doug Burgum, here's the thing with Doug, and I'm guilty of this, man, completely. No flash in the debate, but pretty much his stuff on states' rights, and I mean, there's nothing really that I disagree with. I'm like, yeah, he would be a fine. Heck, they're all good presidential candidates.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got a couple favorites or two, but like there's nothing unlikable about the guy except that he doesn't have the pizzazz, and that's a shame on me because I want Trump. I want somebody throwing fireballs at Brett and Martha. And that's,
he's pretty even keel, and I think people, like you said, want more of a personality, but that might come too. We haven't really seen him
he's in his 60s. If he ain't got a personality now,
look at Mike Pence. He woke up and got mean all of a sudden. I mean, he's been pretty vanilla. But...
That's true. That's a good point.
Before we let you go, we're going to get ready for the morning bell at 8:25. Survey came out, says hardest working states, and this was according to Wallet Hub, and they do a bunch of fun stuff like this. Missouri on the list. Did we make the top 100 for hardest working states? We sure did, John. Can we get a round of applause for Missouri? No, we came in at number 18. Number 1 on the list.
It was North Dakota.
Really?
But I have a theory on that. Most of that is shoveling snow, so I'm not sure if it really counts. And the second part is there is nothing else to do. It coincides with we're also usually at the top of beer consumption. So we work hard and play hard, apparently.
Well, I don't know. You told us yesterday, you said, you go out and feed at 30 below in the wind out there. You're going to be the hardest working state as well.
Well, it takes you 3 hours to get to the, wherever you're going. You got to shovel out first. So I don't know if they're counting that as work, but it is, I guess. In reality, they're very hardworking people. It's agricultural.
Is it oil industry still?
Oil was a big deal. Well, you hear your president. Not your president, maybe, but somebody's president.
January.
Put an end to all that.
You're talking about the tragic events of January the 20th, 2021.
Yeah. So that has really been diminished a lot.
He probably looks as North Dakota with another 3 electoral votes. I don't give a damn about
North
Dakota.
No, he doesn't care. And he's just playing up to his climate friends.
Doug Cota joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Works, he's here in the building. He's in what we call our creative services department. All those really good commercials and all that stuff you hear. He's part of that. They win awards nationwide for the work they do. And he's from North Dakota.
And I can shovel snow.
And he can shovel something.
While drunk, apparently. While drinking beer.
I'm not saying I haven't done that.
Personally kept Molson's in business for years.
Got to keep warm somehow.
That's right.
We appreciate you, man.
You bet.
All right, you have a good day. Coming up, 8:25, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell business news, little twist only Stephanie can give you.
Some folks are building a new city in California, or at least they're going to try. And I'm thinking like Sim City when I was in college. Like who would I want?
Time for the Morning Bell business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Futures are just slightly in the green this morning, but kind of wavering back and forth as the market prepares to open. In the meantime, we've got people who are buying up crazy amounts of land in California. They were saying that this is a pitch to solve California's huge housing and homelessness problems. They've spent, I think, $900 million on this land. It's outside Silicon Valley. And until just, I think, this week, everyone was kind of wondering, they were, obviously behind a company name. And everyone's thinking, who is buying up all of this land?
China.
And why?
China.
I mean, could be, right? So the investors include folks from Sequoia Capital, Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn, somebody of Stripe. So it's all tech bros, basically, and gals, but big tech, basically. And so they're saying, yeah, California has a housing crisis and a homelessness problem. And we hear that even in mid-Mo. Hey, if these businesses are saying that we have a housing crisis, why don't they put up some funds and build some homes? And so they are SimCity style buying up all this land and planning to build their own city. And they're describing it as a clean energy, public transit accessible, high density urban area. Branden is passed out from the buzzwords in this. They also said, I think it's going to have an orchard, a solar energy farm, parks, and public transportation.
And rainbows and unicorns painted everywhere.
Well, you kind of see little pockets of this where, even I think south side of Columbia, you see them kind of building up housing and then little business areas and, try to make it all self-contained. There's a place south of Las Vegas where they did this. I forget the name of it. But anyway, that I've been, that it's clearly all new, all developed. And it's like, is that really where you want to live? Where they just plop down like, this is the perfect city? Because I think it's going to be really expensive. And then B, how do you make that work? And they've got one tiny little problem in that apparently all of the land that they purchased up is not zoned residential. And so just a small problem in that they own all this land that they can't build on right now. They have lawyers, and they have a lot of money. So maybe they could get this changed. But we've seen, with zoning disputes, those can really tank, big developments and are often really contentious at the local level. And they've already received some criticism from those surrounding the areas where they've purchased this land.
So when I hear stories so they bought this town in Marsh, this reminds me of a story, I think it was this week, maybe it was Monday on, and that would be all except for this, where in San Francisco, some woke donut shop owners had
no coppers.
Yeah, and then what happened to that donut store?
They closed temporarily.
Yeah.
The thing that comes to mind on this real quick is this is next to Travis Air Force Base, which was a huge base on the West Coast north of San Francisco. Then we start getting old Chinese in the mix because we remember the thing in North Dakota we should ask Doug about when the Chinese last year bought several hundred acres right adjacent to a U.S. military base.
And a lot of folks are saying, hey, you can't just build a new city and get out from under all of the problems that are causing all the problems in the rest of California. California is notoriously, not an easy place to build houses. There's so much red tape and regulation, and the high cost of housing in California, you don't get out from under by just building another city. You're still going to have a lot of that government red tape that's causing those problems. And so I don't, if I were to put together a group to build my city, it would not be here or these people.
So they say they want to build a city with people that's non-residential, zone non-residential. Makes me think, LOL, lack of logic. Trump, please, in case anybody was in doubt. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Or do you want 8 years of DeSantis? You know, I was off of DeSantis there for a while, but he brought that up, and I'm like, he should have really. I mean, that makes so much more. He said, I can serve 8 years. And I think that's a powerful argument for him against Trump.
And our paths are not, we're not crossing paths here, because I was on DeSantis because of experience, what he did in Florida, much like you highlighted yesterday on the Tobler Show. DeSantis can say, look, I have a record of governing and leading people and doing it successfully. So that's one of the things that appealed to me about DeSantis. And yeah, you can do 8 years and all this stuff. And then I liked him for president right up until he announced he was running for president.
Then he started really fighting Mickey Mouse, and then he decided to do his thing on Twitter, and then he's stepped in it a couple times, and he fired all of his campaigns. I mean, it was going downhill, but I think he's coming back. And I think if he can weather this storm, if he can go back to his state and really, I think him on TV yesterday was really good. He was right in his element. He looked passionate and authentic and everything you would want from a leader. I think he might get a bump if he can really come through this and lead his state like we know he can.
Yep, and he's doing it right now with Hurricane Idalia. What's been happening there? Even they closed some of the Waffle Houses and I'm being serious. So
oh no, that means it's bad.
For real, yeah. So when I lived in Florida, the joke was so 2 things. If you knew the hurricane was going to be real bad, John,
Waffle House.
If Waffle House, if they closed, they're at I-10 and Davis or whatever, or I-10 in Banks Avenue, you're like, it's bad. And you would always see this. You would see the Weather Channel van come into town. Oh, the Weather Channel's here. And they're going to go out. And listen, I'll tell you a true story about the Weather Channel and hurricanes. They went out one time. They were on the beaches of Pensacola. It was not even a hurricane. It was just a tropical storm. I'm not kidding. They opened that side door of the van. They had a plastic trash can full of umbrellas. I'm not making that up, because what they do, they've even been, I thought they got away from that, but they get on.
They're out there this morning.
Yeah, they get on the TV they wear a hat. You're in 125 mile an hour winds. What the hell are you wearing a ball cap for, Jim? And then the umbrella, and they're like, in the wind.
Are the umbrellas already like turned inside out, and they're just like.
Then you see the guys walking along the beach behind them, looking at them.
Yeah. So here's how you know. So Weather Channel, they'd always come to town. But when they pulled up there to the beach, and the camera dude and the engineer and the producer climbed out of the van, and the on-air personality climbed out, if it was Jim Cantore, you're like, crap. Next, they're going to close the Waffle House. This is going to be
I should have left yesterday.
Well, that's the other thing. Listen, I'm not a fan of the government telling me I have to leave my house. If I want to stay, I'm going to suffer the consequences. But they talk about these mandatory evacuations. And then you hear the 911 calls from people who did not evacuate, and 911 folks saying, we're sorry. We just simply cannot get to you because, there's 140 mile an hour winds and seafoot swells of, 20 plus feet. We cannot come get you.
Yeah. Like I asked you off air, I said, is this going to close 98 down there, which anybody's been to the Panhandle knows that hugs right along the coast.
Yeah. And I've enjoyed, they've been calling it the Big Bend area of Florida. That's kind of north of Tampa, but east of, like Panama City and places like that.
Tallahassee.
Yeah. Listen, nobody in Florida calls it the Big Bend area. You know what they call it in Florida? The armpit of Florida. I'm not kidding. It's like, what do we say? You go there often. We go to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
We go and party. People that live in Las Vegas, they don't call it Vegas. They call it Las Vegas. Nobody who lives in Vegas, they don't say Vegas. They say it's Las Vegas. Bunch of useless information that nobody cares about this morning. I'm Branden Rathert.
I care about it. No, I heard a small business owner being interviewed that was down there, and they said, "Hey, we're right in the eye, or right in the way. And last time we evacuated, but we've reinforced and built a wall, and we're excited, and we think we're gonna stick it out." And I hope those people are okay, and especially as small businesses, they've been through so much. My thoughts are with them today for sure, especially those people who are trying to stay with their business and, keep their business going, who are trying to stay put. I wouldn't want to be in that position to have to try to make those decisions.
Off the text, 874-9390. Stuart says Trump 24. Another person, nameless text. Would love to get your name, by the way. And whenever you text, especially, we love hearing from first-time texters. And we might ask your name and what town you live in, and it's not for a database or anything. It's really just for our purposes. Keith sends a text, says, you guys are so in the tank for DeSantis. You need to wipe the brown stuff off your noses. And here's a read. McLaughlin poll, Trump beats Biden in electoral landslide.
But there's some new data. Is Karl Rove, like, he's a plant.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Karl Rove or John Marsh's favorite political prognosticator, Dick Morris.
Funny you say that. That was kind of my mindset as well.
Well, there is a hurricane going on right now, guys.
Couple of blowhards to go with it, right?
Dick Morris was on the show a year ago, and he was talking about how great he is at predicting presidential races, and he was predicting Trump could win 2024. And John Marsh, as a matter of fact, brought up, well, what about when you said that Mitt Romney was going to win? Was that the one you were asking about?
Yeah, it was Mitt Romney, and the hurricane blew right into the midst of his response.
Dick Morris. Well, I didn't come to talk about the past. And he sounded like the Penguin. We were exactly talking about the past and how good he had been with, picking presidential winners. Well, I thought Trump was going to win. So, what's Karl Rove saying?
He put an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and the headline is "Trump looks beatable in early states." And so we might, call him what he is. He's got certainly a bias, but he's actually got some data in this article, and he's looking at specifically Iowa and New Hampshire and saying, hey, Trump's numbers in those states are much lower than they are nationally. And so I think what he's trying to say is, look, like in Iowa, for example, where the other candidates have spent a lot of time, have gotten to know the people, have, spent money, have been up on the airwaves, those kinds of things, Trump is not performing as well. And it's showing that his numbers are squishy, and that, folks who nationally might say that they support Trump in other states, once they have a chance to get to know some of these other candidates, there's some movement there that people are shifting away from Trump into some of these other candidates. So Trump in Iowa said, let's see, is at 42% among Iowa GOP caucus goers, whereas nationally he stood at 57%. So, and then in New Hampshire, I think Trump's at 34%. He said that's 22 points lower than the national standing. So I think that data is interesting. I don't know if that means Trump's beatable, because obviously those numbers are still pretty big. But I would have thought that people were stickier to Trump, I guess.
Yeah. So maybe polling, for what it's worth. I think the best description, snapshot this moment in time of a select number of.
But you can imagine what would happen if, Trump underperforms in some of those early states and it feels like the tide is shifting, or that the momentum starts getting those early states have such an enormous impact on the rest of the election cycle that, I think that data is really something we got to watch, and has kind of gone, since the debate, has gone under the radar.
Yeah. 874-9390. 874-9390. I think the city of St. Charles taking a page out of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri playbook. This is something we did several months ago, and I think we've done this more than once over the years. I don't know, it was 4 or 5 months ago. We spent a morning, folks were texting us pictures of expired tags, but like way expired tags. And I think we got some in the neighborhood of 3+ years old, people driving around with expired tags. So St. Charles is saying, hey, they're calling on residents to take pictures of illegal tags and send them to the city so they can pursue legal action. One of the primary complaints is temporary tags. And, we get that around here. The people that complain about temporary tags. I see it, I notice it, but the number of people that then take that next step and will complain about it, I have a
like we're doing right now.
So what St. Charles is doing, saying, hey, so we can't assign officers to handle that, so it'll be kind of an administrative thing. So here's what the city is saying. If you're behind, so snitch. If you want to snitch, here's how you do it. If you're behind a car with an expired tag, take your cell phone, take a picture of it. We'll have an email address you can send it to, then we'll follow up.
I see some folks being enticed to break a new Missouri law with that idea.
So here they're saying, wow, here's what they're doing. So break the law, take your cell phone out in your car, take your handheld communications device, and take a picture of somebody else breaking the law.
And then turn yourself in.
Gosh. The mayor there says, "Oh, well, I'm not advising motorists to take pictures while driving, but instead wait until they're stopped." That doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, if you're in a car and it's running, I just don't think it matters. But apparently they heard Wake Up Mid-Missouri and what we did several months ago with people sending in pictures of expired. We still get pictures from time to time at 874-9390.
Is there a Facebook group for this yet, like Wall of Shame or something? I'm totally
There ought to
fine
be.
with outing these folks. But no, I mean, and this has gotten people in trouble during COVID when we had the tattle, hey, tattle on this business for being open or whatever, and people tattled
The neighbors had 12 people at their barbecue.
Oh, yeah, and then they didn't realize when you email the government, guess what? The government will then tell that you were the tattler because it's an open record. So make sure if you're tattling and you don't want to be outed, be careful about where you're emailing from.
Get a friend to do it for you. 874-9390. Coming up, we're going to be doing some leftovers here on the show. Some of the good stuff did not get a chance to get to. We'll do that coming up 5 minutes from now.
Leftovers. Enjoy.
Do this before we get into the Gary Nolan Show. It's my dad's favorite show here on the radio station. Start here. Missouri State Highway Patrol has an open investigation into Ashland's police chief, Chief Gabe Edwards. Stephanie Bell, of course, you're an elected older woman in the town of Ashland. What can you tell us about the situation regarding Gabe Edwards?
I can't.
Okay. I did text him, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Sent him a text, said, hey, I don't know what's going on, whatever, but just, hope you're okay. And he texted back and said, doing fine. Thanks for asking. Mr. Marsh, what do you got for leftovers?
Well, if you're a Mizzou employee, looks like you might only have to work a half day today because those employees who work on campus in what they call non-public facing roles get to work remotely tomorrow because if you can do it, if you're one of those Mizzou employees, you can bail out by noon or so because you're expecting a whole lot of traffic for the Tigers football kickoff against South Dakota tomorrow night at Faroe Field.
Just take the whole day off, man. Tell him John Marsh said it was okay.
That's right. Just tell him you were headed to our Zimmer Tiger tailgate.
So we are doing the Zimmer Tiger tailgates, man. Biggest Mizzou Tiger tailgate. And it's what we do. So 2 hours prior to every kickoff, we just have a big old party. And you can go and get free passes. So, like, if you're in Mexico, Missouri, you can go to Graff & Sons. In Columbia, you can go to G&D Pizzeria. And in Jefferson City, you can go to, like, Big Whiskey's. You walk in and say, hey, the crew on Wake Up Mid-Missouri is saying, you're just giving these things out. I think we'll give you up to 4. 2 hours prior to the game, you come find us by the Mizzou Arena, in between the Mizzou Arena and the stadium. And you come in, man, and we feed you and drink you Buffalo Wild Wings, High Noon, Bud Light, get you free passes, first one tomorrow night. Steph Bell, what you got for leftovers?
Well, it's not just regular folks feeling the squeeze from Bidenomics, but also, unfortunately, it's our mascots, too. They are entering their side hustle era. And I was going to ask Hannah, apparently you can now invite your college mascot to attend your wedding for as low as $300.
That's not an invitation. That's a booking, Stephanie.
I think it's great. And so there's all these pictures of people with their college mascots with couples. And I've seen the small portions of bands come through wedding receptions, which I love, like our drum lines. And I think I've seen pictures
You're going to be real disappointed.
I think I've seen pictures of people with like the Golden Girls at their wedding, big Mizzou fans. But I think that would be, how cool is that?
You said Golden Girls for a second. I went to Estelle Getty from the old TV show, Golden Girls. Golden Girls from...
Two types of people in this world.
Yeah. You say Golden Girls, and there's one type of people that think, oh, the Mizzou Golden Girls, and then old dudes like me who think, oh, Estelle.
Maud
from that show. Hannah's actually, today's her last day. She's going to the big tractor show.
My last day for the week.
Yikes.
Oh.
Don't start any rumors.
For the week. Are you getting, so this weekend is the weekend you're getting married. Tractor show in Iowa.
No, we got to wait till Black Friday.
Black Friday. Oh, yeah. So Drumline, Golden Girls, Truman the Tiger, halftime. Mizzou, Arkansas, Black Friday football game right there.
Can have the suey pig there as well.
Yeah. Why not?
50-yard line.
Put him on the buffet.
I wonder if they would I wonder if the mascot would officiate your wedding. How cool would that be?
They don't talk though, do they? Isn't that like a mascot rule? You don't talk?
Even better, I'd like to see a mascot officiate the game. That would be pretty cool. Truman the Tiger out there.
Wouldn't be biased at all.
Blair Oaks football team, number 1, Class 3 state rankings. And, man, they just won a state championship last year, so they're off to a good start. Friday's opener, they beat Maryville 41-14. I like it when these high school football teams, so it's the America. Seriously, we talk about things that we look forward to and stuff. The last time I went to a high school football game, I still owe.
You fleeced?
I fleeced them I didn't know you had to pay to get into a game. Blows me away. But anyhow, I still owe whatever the school is up there in Hannibal. I owe them some money last month. But I get excited that everybody else gets excited.
I'm excited.
For high school football.
Oh, yeah. Southern Boone's got a new field, and it's looking really nice. And apparently, I haven't seen the other scores, but they had, I think, a JV game where it was like the score was like 70-0 or something crazy. So, no, I'm excited. And, yes, I'm currently saving all of my nickels and dimes to afford to watch all of my kids play sports over the next year because I have to pay to go to almost everything.
Well, a lot of school districts are doing like wristbands now or like family passes that you can buy for a whole season. So maybe you should look into that.
Or get a monthly subscription. Do one of those monthly.
A cool game in Jefferson City. Capital City is going to play Battle Friday night in their brand new Jefferson City Stadium.
Ooh, that's going to be cool. And we carry some high school football on KWS, Marsh.
We're going to have that one with Kevin Kelly and Tom Kramer and all of them on KWS on Friday night.
Pregame starts at 6:30.
And don't we have a special guest coming in tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm gone.
Yeah. That's just the way it worked out. We do
a different special guest.
A blast from the past. I think about all the former members that have fled this show over the years.
Flown the coop.
Well, I'm thinking people like Laura Nauser, Breck Dumas. I mean, there's a whole bunch
Brad
of people.
Trinago.
Yeah.